No Nonsense Know-How here again, and today's going to be an overview video on how to replace the water pump seals in a 2017 Honda Africa Twin. This is my buddy Alex's bike. He's behind the camera right now.
Yo.
And we're going to give you just a brief overview of what's involved. So let's dive in. Now this bike's got only 10,000 miles on it, and this is a pretty common issue with these. What he had happening was, as he's going down the road, you see this little weep hole? He had coolant shooting out of there. So, with only 10,000 miles, it's pretty unacceptable failure in my opinion, but it is what it is. The items you need for this job is a new antifreeze. He got this OEM Honda stuff. Motor oil, takes 4.5 quarts, so he's only got a gallon here. Oil filter, and your seal. So you got the water pump cover seal and the water pump shaft seal. First step is going to be coming underneath the bike. Take your skid guard off, loosen the two 12mm bolts to get your oil draining, take your oil filter off. Guess I should give you a close-up. Once you remove your skid plate, you have two drain plugs, 12mm right there and a 12mm right there. There will be aluminum washers, sealing washers, that they recommend replacing, but you can usually reuse these if you'd like. So yeah, just make sure to tighten your drain plugs back down, right? You don't want to have an oil out. While that's draining, you gotta come up and take this. If you get to your radiator cap, this is so dumb. You gotta take this whole entire fairing off. Now there are other videos I saw that show you good instructions on how to do this. So I'll plug one of those in down below, but it's just a bunch of clips behind here, a couple Phillips screws, and boom, once you have that off, you can take your rad cap off. Once your oil's done draining, you can get your coolant draining. That's gonna be this hex bolt right here, and it has a copper washer on it. That's your coolant drain. Make sure when you take that out, you have this on an angle because it comes shooting out like 2 feet. Take your cap off to assist with the flow. Good to go. He also had this Jivvy crash bar on here, so if you got one of those, gotta get that out of the way. Remove the two hose clamps on your rad hoses, 6mm hose clamps on those. And your clutch cable, come in here to loosen this. You got a 12mm crack loose, then back the 14 all the way off so you can slide this forward, and then you can just pop your cable off right there. With all that out of the way, you zip the rest of the 5mm head bolts off. I did fail to mention you do have this other plastic cover that bolts on there too. Two 5mm on that. But zip all those off, and now we're ready to pop the cover off. If you take your clutch rod, we'll call it, vertical rod, and you push it out this way, it will push the cover off a little bit. Make sure you got all your bolts off before you go hitting on this thing or trying to take it off. But if you push on that a little bit, give it a little love tap, it should come off. I don't recommend going in there with a screwdriver or anything, but that's the point we're at right now. So we're gonna slide this cover off, and boom, that's what she looks like. You do see that since when I pulled this up, this little clutch rod spring came out, so we're gonna make sure to put that in the right way. Very nice to see though that this gasket actually stayed perfectly intact, and so that's going to be completely reusable. Do also take note that you have a dowel pin right here and another one over here, which this one stayed in the block. So I'm going to take that out of the block and put that into the cover. Looks tight. Now I got to correct myself. In the beginning I was saying that was the weep hole, but you can see the weep hole actually extends off this little elbow, so that's the weep hole for the water pump, which is located right here. With this cover off, you can see your coolant comes from inside of the case through this tube, and so this is one of the seals that's going to want that you're going to want to replace on here. In my opinion, this is a bad design. I don't think you should have the coolant flowing through the case. I mean, if this seal was to ever fail, you don't have a weep hole for this one. If this is leaking, you're leaking coolant right into your engine, and you're not going to know about it. This weep hole indicates that a seal's going bad in here. So let's take these 10 mils off and see what's going on. Alright, boom. Why didn't you just get a whole new water pump? They don't sell a new water pump?
I mean, they probably do, but...
Dude, that's what you need. You need a new water pump, man.
Think so?
Alright, well, I think we gave you a little misinformation. Alex, where'd you get your info for this repair in these parts?
The internet.
So after looking on some forums, he found that he needed this seal and this water pump seal. Well, that's completely incorrect. He needs a new water pump because that weep hole is indicating that the seal behind this impeller is allowing the pressurized coolant inside of here to escape. And before it would blow past, this bearing here and go into your motor oil, that would not be good. It has a weep hole. This actually reminds me of a Chrysler 2.7 liter engine, because that's the only car engine I know that has put the water pump inside the engine. Terrible design this is. But yeah, so when this leaks, it goes out this weep hole right here and goes in right there, travels down this vertical tube. This is sitting on the bike like this, so the coolant goes in there, goes down that tube, and provided this is not blocked off with dirt and grime and whatever else, it trickles out of there. Now, if this was blocked off, it's going to build up pressure within the cavity behind this impeller gear, and then it's going to blow into your motor oil. And I actually did take compressed air, and we blew inside of here, and I saw it's blowing right past into, watch this, watch it come out that bearing, look at that. So that's not good. You got to make sure if you have this bike, make sure this port is free and clear, because if it's not, you're going to get coolant in your motor oil and you're not going to know about it. Now, the other bad thing about having this stupid pump inside of this cover is, okay, yeah, it's great if your pump fails that they have you weep hole, yeah, you're going to know about it, cool. But if this seal fails, or again, the tube seal right here fails where it slides into there, you ain't gonna know about it. You're gonna wash out your crank bearings and connecting rod bearings and all that good stuff. So, not liking what I see here. You can see just how clean this bike is too. Only 10,000 miles on it, and the factory water pump is bad. Shame on you, Honda. Not only did you put a water pump inside of the engine, but you put probably a cheap Chinese one in there that failed at 10,000 miles, and that's BS. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I agree. But it is what it is. I still love the bike, and I don't care.
And we just looked this up too on Partzilla. $150 for this little chunk. Let's smash this apart and see what's up with it now. This is the driven side that drives off the engine, and then right behind the impeller, you have a spring-loaded like plastic piece that keeps whatever tension on. I guess that's a first seal, primary seal, and then inside of here you have the other seals, which again, this is not replaceable, but let's see if I can get it out for you. So that seal right there, that's the one that needs to be replaced. It's like a double lip seal that seals oil from coolant, and well, look at that. It had corrosion in there, so it was probably pushing past the outside of this seal, actually, on the outside of it. And I'm going to say this is Alex's fault, because he hasn't changed his coolant ever in 10,000 miles.
Whoa, easy.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's the problem. Corrosion in there, and the coolant was pushing past. And if you watch my channel, you'll know I have the identical bike to him, which I actually copied off him. It's a true story. Sold my BMW to get this because I loved it so much. But look at that. Mine's leaking too. Look at that in there. I can get my finger on there. Oh, yeah. So my water pump is trickling as well, and this only has 10,000 miles on it. Here we are a week later. The new pump has come in. Looks nice. Oh, pretty self-explanatory to put this all together, but I'll just give you a few tips. Start by putting this O-ring on. I'm gonna put a little Bel-Ray waterproof grease on all of the O-rings that I'm putting on here, so you just kind of rub that on, and that will just help seal it and also help install it. Help out with installation. Same thing with this one, little dye or a little waterproof grease on there, and then pop that into its groove. I might actually suggest to put this outer O-ring in dry, snap it into these little holder tabs, if you can see those, and then go over it with a little light oil or grease just to make sure it seals perfectly. But this was a little tough to get fully seated in here and have it stay in place. Like you see, it's coming up a little bit right here, because you want to make sure when you bolt this onto the cover that this does not come out of place. And so what I'll suggest doing is hold the pump like so, and then fold the cover over top of it. Make sure you have this dowel pin and this dowel pin in the cover is for the pump. So I'll throw this over and get that lined up. Cool. Before you go zipping the bolts, make sure it's sitting on there flush all the way. Looks good. Make sure to tighten those bolts good and tight. I'm not exactly sure what the torque spec is. If you know what it is, plug that in down in the comments below. Would be awesome, so I can put it in the description. If you're not familiar with using the tightening bolts, then you might want to look the spec up. But once it's tight, make sure the pump spins freely. It does have some drag to it since it's a brand new pump, brand new seal in there and everything. quick note, I don't know if I specified this before, but when he said he was getting the water pump seals, I assumed it was just a rebuildable pump. Like a lot of bikes will have seals that you can replace in the water pump that I've seen in the past. So that wasn't the case with this one. Cover's ready to get bolted on. Do make note before you go putting this on that, see this clutch lever right here. You got to make sure that this spring is snapped into place properly. That's the only thing inside this cover. And again, a little bit of grease on there, and make sure you don't have any blue coolant sitting in here from when you had the pump off. To put the cover on, make sure this dowel pin and this dowel pin are in place, or you have them on the case. It doesn't matter, I guess. Make sure you don't tear this O-ring when you're sliding it into that bore. And, well, you're going to have a water pump alignment too. So you got to make sure this is clocked properly to slide on to the little water pump niblet. So got to make sure that's clocked right. And also, I was just messing around with putting this on a second ago. This weep hole nipple that has a tendency to want to get caught on the case. So make sure you don't bend or get that hooked on there. It has to go over and sit on the outside, not the inside, right? Once you get all that lined up perfectly, you can slide it right on. If you have to hit it or do anything, pull it back off and check your work. That's on there, flush all the way, zip your bolts in. They're all the same with the exception of the one that has the copper washer for your coolant drain. And that goes in right there. Before you tighten them all, make sure your clutch engages properly on that rod. Cool, feels good. Went back together smooth. Now all you have to do is fill your coolant up through the radiator and burp out any air bubbles. Fill your oil, which the oil fills on the other side of the bike. Put your skid plate on, make sure your drain plugs are tight, and put this plastic on. I'm going to just leave this video off here though, because all that stuff's pretty elementary. If you guys want a more thorough step-by-step on this process, I'll probably be replacing the pump in my bike, which is sitting outside at some point. So comment down below if you'd like to see a more rapid-fire step-by-step video on this. I guess you would call it the no-nonsense, know-how approach, since we ran into a couple hiccups with this one. But yeah, I think this pretty much sums it up in 10 to maybe 13 minutes, whatever this video is going to be. So like usual, consider dropping this video a big thumbs up. Leave me some feedback in the comment section down below. Subscribe, check out one of my other videos, or any of that kind of stuff. Alex actually has a channel as well, so I'm going to plug a link to his channel down below too. And so check him out. But till next time, this is KZ Guy 2 here. No nonsense, no how. Chris Brown, whatever you want to call me. And this is some information on the 2016 to 2019 Honda Africa Twin water pumps. Oh, there is one more thing. Last thing I want to mention. Oh, man. This is going on and on, huh? Me and Alex were talking, and that little weep tube that's sitting back here, I'm wondering, we're thinking maybe some corrosion. The corrosion that happened in there would be from road salt maybe getting up in there, or debris and moisture. So we're going to probably do a future video on a mod where we would take that little nipple and run a hose doing a little loop or anything else just to try to keep that from corroding again, because we're thinking that might be what happened. But the only other thing you can do is make sure to change your coolant at factory recommended intervals. And I suppose, seeing the corrosion problem, I would recommend using the factory OEM. However, if you guys know of something that's a little bit less prone to having corrosion issues, better coolant, let me know. Comment that down below. All right, now the video's over. I'll see you next time.